Microcast listeners. Today we're sharing something special from our sister podcast, Your Diet Sucks. If you like what you hear today, you can find even more nutrition deep dives wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search Your Diet Sucks. Today we're exploring everything about protein, why it's suddenly in everything, how much you actually need, and how to navigate all the health industry hype. We're digging into the history, gender dynamics, and marketing behind the world's protein obsession. We're going to tackle protein powders with heavy metal contamination, environmental costs, and what athletes really need to know about supplementing the diet industry's favorite macronutrient. If you want even more practical training and nutrition tips, check out Microcosm Coaching at microcosm-coaching.com. And for more episodes like this, head to Your Diet Sucks. We drop new episodes every other week. Welcome to Your Diet Sucks, the podcast that won't ruin your ice cream. I'm Zoë Rom.
And I'm Kylee Van Horn.
Today, we are talking about one of the most beloved and misunderstood macronutrients in America, and maybe the world, protein. We're going to talk about why is it suddenly feel like protein is everywhere? Why did it become such a big deal? Why is it in everything? How much do you actually need to build muscle, recover faster, and age well? I'm assuming this is something that you hear about a lot with your clients.
Oh, yeah. I feel like every week, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe every day, there's a new product coming out that has protein in it. I mean, I remember I went to this conference a few years ago and it was like protein water. Like they're like adding protein to water.
Why?
Like, oh,
that's
or
just
like
a protein shake.
Or the chips that they like all the chips and the bars and
the chips, the bars,
the cereal,
the cereal.
And I feel like it's often a guise of like keto too.
It's always like
carbs,
keto,
don't eat
friendly. Yeah,
get more protein and don't eat any carbs in your cereal or something.
Which
this isn't cereal.
That is what cereal is for me. I want a bowl of carb.
Yeah, and then with athletes, they just get confused. You know what products are like. They're like, is this a good product? Like, what should I be doing? It seems like, more protein's probably better because I heard this on the internet.
Yep.
So
if a little protein is good, a lot of protein must be very good.
Yeah. So everywhere.
Yeah. And there's also, I feel like the conversation, particularly in the realm of athletes and fitness, is kind of all over the place when it comes to recommendations.
Oh, yeah.
With like influencers like Peter Attia and Stacey Sims promoting extremely high levels of protein consumption that we will lightly fact check throughout this episode. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. So let's walk back in time. How did we get here with protein in particular, Zoe?
Let's dive into the history of protein. So protein, as we know it, the macronutrient, was coined in 1838 by the Dutch chemist Gerardus Mulder, which is an incredible name. And so that comes from the Greek word proteos, meaning primary or first place. And Mulder described it as a foundational molecule of life due to its nitrogen content and the presence in animal tissue. And then in the early 20th century, protein was seen as a marker of strength, virility, and industrial progress. The USDA began issuing dietary guidelines in 1894, and by the 1910s, protein was already elevated above other macronutrients in sort of its prestige because it was associated with strength food, particularly meat and dairy.
And I feel like that is where we are today still.
Exactly. Looking at you, 1910. It's kind of comforting to know that we've been sort of like had our protein boner for more than a century at this point. There was a guy, a physiologist at Yale named Russell Henry Chittenden, who conducted what was at the time some very controversial experiments in the early 1900s that showed that athletes and soldiers could still maintain physical performance on lower protein diets. So talking here about 5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which was a direct challenge then to the prevailing 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram norms. His results were published in Physiological Economy and Nutrition in 1904 and suggested that Americans were already consuming excess protein well beyond actual metabolic needs. And this ignited a lot of early debate on optimal intake versus marketing-driven consumption. And I think this is a trend that we will continue to see today. So he's kind of like the OG debunking king, and his findings in the early 1900s were revolutionary because they directly challenged that dominant belief that protein in huge amounts was essential for health, strength, and productivity. At the time, this was associated with the kind of nutritional nationalism and industrial vigor. And his experiments introduced the idea that the body could adapt to lower intakes without impairing function, and used relatively rigorous tracking of nitrogen balance and physical performance to back this up. And that opened the door to rethinking that more is better as the default nutritional philosophy. It's not without flaws. I'm not saying that like this study from literally 1904 is where protein science ends and begins.
We're still
Obviously, this is not the study that I want you to make your dietary choices based on, but it does sort of like put a pin in this trend that we're seeing. Protein has been historically hyped a lot. So it's this study from 1904 is definitely not aligned with the athlete-specific recommendations today. But looking to World War II, protein's role in military nutrition particularly really helped cement its association with strength, recovery, masculinity. And after the war, surpluses of whey and casein, which are byproducts of dairy production, were turned into powdered supplements, initially marketed to bodybuilders. Looking at the 1960s to 80s, the explosion of muscle magazines, bodybuilding culture, looking at you, Arnold Schwarzenegger, bro science, this really entrenched the idea that high-protein diets are essential for hypertrophy and masculinity.
Now, is it the protein powder or is it the steroids? That's my question.
Right, like, is it the Liver King where he was saying, like, oh yeah, it's the liver, you guys. It's not the $10,000 of like yak testosterone that I'm snorting each and every morning. And then whey protein isolate was industrialized in the 1970s, but widespread consumer use really surged in the 90s and 2000s with the rise of Atkins, South Beach, paleo, and CrossFit. The Atkins diet particularly, I think, really helped cement the idea that protein was king. Charles Atkins once claimed that eating a pork chop was healthier than eating a banana because it had zero carbs.
Whoa.
Fact check. No.
No. And also, man, what would Big Banana say about that? Remember the ads that we were talking about?
I think about the banana ads every single day. And in early editions of his diet book, he advised replacing pasta with, get this, grated cheddar cheese melted into noodle shapes.
Ew.
Honestly, I feel like as a cheese queen, that sounds pretty good. But like, also maybe not. Yeah.
Pasta, though.
I am just a huge fan of anything that combines cheese and noodles.
Yeah.
So thank you, Charles Atkins, for that incredible food idea. Restaurants also cashed in. Burger King released bunless burgers that were like sort of served in plastic containers that they called Atkins-friendly meals.
Currently, lettuce wraps, like
exactly.
Same thing.
Yeah. Like have it as a bowl, have it as a, yeah, exactly. And protein consumption was rebranded not just as functional, but absolutely essential for everyone, from dieters to grandmas, school children to ultra runners.
So now I'm really interested. What about, you were talking about how it is for everyone, but also are there some gender patterns that have come about with where we talked about this in Game Changers?
Yeah. As you remember from our Game Changers episode, there is sort of a fascinating and fraught history when it comes to gender and protein, especially meat consumption. So let's watch this incredible Burger King commercial from the 90s.
Oh, I haven't seen this yet.
I am man, hear me roar. The number's too big to ignore, and I'm way too hungry to settle for chick food.
Chick food?
Cause my stomach's starting to growl, and I'm going on the
Prowl.
for a Texas double whopper. Man, that's good. Oh, yes, I'm a guy.
What?
Listen, I've been fed quiche.
Fuck quiche. Fuck tofu.
I will eat this meat.
Oh my God.
I am starved. I am incorrigible. And I need to stuff a big burger, beef, bacon, jalapeno good thing down.
Wow.
They just threw a minivan off a bridge.
And there's a dude like pulling the minivan to go get a burger now.
The Texas double whopper. Eat like a man.
Wow.
Eat like a man. Yep. So multiple studies have actually shown that meat and protein-rich diets are culturally associated with masculinity, strength, and dominance. There was actually a 2011 study published in Appetite that found that men were more likely to associate meat with masculinity and to actually express aversion to plant-based diets on gender grounds. There was also a 2012 study in the Journal of Consumer Research that found that men tend to rate meat-based meals as more manly and protein as a performance-enhancing tool, whereas women were more likely to associate food with wellness or morality, which, I mean, it's problematic in every single direction there.
Primal.
Prowl, right, like, which I was like, oh, the word prowl sends like a shiver down my spine. Like, I don't know that we need people of any gender prowling the streets of New York City and throwing a Honda Odyssey into the Gowanus. Men's protein products are often marketing using hyper-masculine tropes. So you see black red packaging, bold fonts, names like mass gainer, anabolic fuel, or beast mode. And there's this focus on size, strength, dominance, and muscle gain. Whereas women's protein products are framed very differently. The packaging often comes in pastel tones, slim containers. Slim fast. And flavor options like vanilla cupcake or berry bliss. And the messaging for women emphasizes leaning out, toning, or supporting hair and skin health rather than building strength. You see products like Tone It Up Protein and Lean Fit that really emphasize beauty, balance, and lifestyle aesthetics rather than performance. There's another study in Appetite in 2014 that analyzed protein ads and found that women were sold protein as a tool for self-control, body shaping, and beauty maintenance, while men were sold protein as an enhancer of strength, aggression, and dominance. And again, I think that's a big problem on both sides.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But also fits right back into my skinny tactical stand-up dichotomy. There's another 2020 study by the International Food Information Council that found that men were more likely to say they intentionally increased their protein intake, while women were more likely to associate protein with weight management and aging. So these gendered norms can affect actual eating behavior. Some women might underconsume protein due to fear of bulking up or prioritizing calorie control, which can be detrimental during training and aging. Conversely, men might overconsume protein due to the inflated beliefs about muscle gains, masculinity, and sometimes that can come at the expense of other dietary quality factors like fiber, micronutrients,
and
not needing to throw a minivan into a river.
I'll literally have male athletes that I'll be working with, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm open-minded to making changes to help my endurance performance. And so we'll get started, and I'm like, well, you need to bring your protein down and bring your carbs up. And they like freak out.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, I'll try it. And it's like pulling teeth to like get them, like they're at like 50 grams of carbs a day and training 3 hours a day. And I'm like, well, just like, we can just like bump it up by like 20 grams of carbs. Can you do that? It's like hand holding, and they get scared.
Why do you think why do they say they're scared? Like when you work with folks like this,
they feel like it's aesthetic based.
Yeah.
So that they're going to
lose muscle,
gain fat, and their body composition's not going to be the right fit.
Yeah, people a lot of times, I mean, a pattern that we'll see again and again in this episode is people really cling to their protein shakes for dear life because of the beliefs associated with protein's ability, I'm using air quotes, to modify body composition.
So why is protein suddenly everywhere? And also, like, I'm kind of wondering, is it suddenly everywhere? It kind of sounds like maybe we've gone in these like trend waves, like, you know how we focused on like the low fat era and the low carbs, etc. Yep. So is it one of those things where we go on a trend cycle?
Well, yes and no. If you'll sort of think about some of the dietary trends we've pointed out, like the low sugar or low carb craze, the low fat craze, protein has never really been demonized in the diet space the same way that other macronutrients like carbohydrates and fat have. So I think the fact that it hasn't been demonized in quite that same way, people feel safe flocking to it. And actually, yes, we do have data to support this. The number of products that are labeled as high protein has exploded over the past 15 years. According to Nielsen IQ, food and beverage launches featuring high protein grew 498% between 2007 and 2023. According to Mintel, 55% of U.S. consumers are actually saying that they actively seek out high protein foods. And this demand is cross-demographic. Younger people, though, do tend to view it as more performance enhancing, while older adults associate it with anti-aging. And if you actually look specifically at millennials, our fellow millennials, the fellow youths, and Gen Z, protein is actually the number one nutrition claim that consumers look for on packaged food.
So these companies are taking advantage of
yes,
this.
They
for
are.
Sure.
Exactly. And 79% of consumers in that same study cited that they believe that protein helps with energy and feeling full. And 68% believe that it supports weight management, even though protein doesn't directly supply more energy than carbs or fat, and in fact is metabolized differently and more slowly in a way that doesn't directly, it's not the same as carbohydrates, which is like much more readily available as energy. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Tailwind Nutrition, specifically their new Blueberry Lemonade Endurance Fuel, aka your summer training's new secret weapon. This flavor it's bright, tangy, and seriously refreshing, even when it's like 90 degrees and it feels like you're running through a hairdryer. Like all Tailwind Endurance Fuel, it's designed to give you everything you need in a single bottle. Carbs, electrolytes, hydration, and it is so dang tasty. It's light on the stomach, easy to sip, and strong on performance. Whether you're training, racing, or adventuring hard, this is your fuel up and feel good solution. You can get 20% with the code YDS20. Grab the new blueberry lemonade flavor at tailwindnutrition.com or just hit the link in our show notes. This episode is brought to you by Microcosm Coaching, where we coach humans, not just athletes. Whether you're training for your first 5K, chasing a marathon PR, or lining up for your 10th 100-miler, our team of fully certified coaches is here to help you reach your goals with personalized, one-on-one support every step of the way. At Microcosm, we don't believe in cookie-cutter plans. We offer 3 different tiers of coaching, so you can choose the level of support that fits your needs, goals, and life. From flexible training plans to high-touch guidance, there's something for every athlete. We use evidence-based training that's tailored to you, because you're not just an athlete, you're a whole person, and that matters. Ready to train with purpose and feel supported while doing it? Head to microcosm-coaching.com to book a free consultation call, or email us directly at microcosmcoaching@gmail.com to learn more. Let's go after what matters together.
So what do we think is driving this demand for more protein?
Right,
That's a
so-
lot. That's a big number.
498%.
What?
Damn. I wish I had bought that protein stock 15 years ago when I was 15, 16, I guess. So high protein diets do increase satiety, and that's been heavily marketed to dieters particularly. Studies do confirm that protein helps reduce hunger hormones like ghrelin and increase GLP-1 and PYY, and that's according to a study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition from 2015. And that's why a lot of protein-enhanced products are positioned as meal replacements or snack insurance.
Oh, the snack insurance, man. I had to laugh. I was
What's
like,
your RDN reaction to that?
Well, it's just promoting the idea of like shutting up natural hunger and fullness in
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah.
And like this idea of like, oh, snacking's bad.
Yeah.
So, eat more protein so you don't snack.
So that you don't snack, or if you have to have a snack, make sure it's mostly protein because that's
Yeah.
the safe macro, right?
Mhm.
Also, fitness and muscle culture has gone a lot more mainstream, right? Like some of these products that were once maybe only seen in bodybuilding gyms, like protein shakes and powders, are now pretty abundant in daily rituals for even casual exercisers and, office workers alike. Things like CrossFit, Peloton, and Instagram influencers have all helped normalize the idea that you need more protein to look and perform your best.
Oh, and then they also have this like one track recommendation that everyone needs 1 gram per pound of body weight. And it drives me insane because that's like what everyone that comes to me, they're like, do I need 1 gram per pound of body weight? It's stressing me out so much. Like, I don't know how to get that much in.
I know people like whenever, I mean, yeah, like I think that because it is an easier macro to track and doesn't always, it has like different diet culture connotations. Again, nothing is safe. No one is safe. We all live in the bad place. But I think sometimes people feel more comfortable sort of like assessing their protein intake than examining other parts of their diet.
I've had people be like, oh yeah, I've done macro tracking before, but I only paid attention to my protein intake. And I'm like, okay, interesting.
Cool. That's one piece of data. Yeah, it's also sort of this way that clean eating has rebranded itself, like post Whole30 and paleo. Many consumers now associate protein with clean fuel or like as a safe or more virtuous macronutrient that isn't processed carbs or saturated fat. And you can see this in protein bars like RX Bar and No-Cal that market themselves as both minimalist and performance enhancing with like the just egg whites, almonds, and dates. No BS.
Except No-Cal has the sugar alcohols in it, which drives me insane.
Why does that drive you insane?
It's just people buy these high protein bars and they're like, they're healthier. And particularly when you're an endurance athlete, you do need to watch out for sugar alcohols.
Because
you might have to get a sack on the side of your training session.
I was going to make you say it.
You gotta poop.
Yep. So yeah, and as people do, like Americans, our snacking has increased and we're having fewer sit-down meals. Protein fortification has sort of been sold as that way of making snacks more legitimate. Like, oh, this isn't junk food. It has protein. Again, junk food is not a term that we use or endorse, but we're just speaking to the mindsets that we see in the research and in practice here. Protein has become this buzzword that just implies fitness, cleanliness, discipline, strength, even when it's basically a candy bar, essentially, which is fine. Eat your candy bar, girl. But like,
also have a real candy bar.
Also have a real candy bar. And the focus on grams of protein per serving creates a very reductionist view of nutrition, as if 20 grams in a bar equals 20 grams in lentil stew. It doesn't. These are different things. Your body experiences them differently. Reminder, food is culture also, not just fuel.
I also want, on that note, since you made that comment, I can also see the other side here too, where some of my athletes get stressed because they're having a serving of protein powder or like a bar or something. And they're like, well, like I should have all whole foods, and like I'm nervous about using a supplemental protein thing to meet my protein needs. And so just want to make a note there that like, we're not saying that it's a bad thing here that you have some supplemental protein sources as a convenience source.
Totally.
But maybe if all you live on is bars and protein powder, that's probably where we want to pay attention.
Correct. We're not demonizing, like finding those ways of adding in more protein to your diet if appropriate, useful, and also something that you enjoy. But what I am trying to push against is how much diet culture messaging is driving that decision making, particularly in athletes and particularly in the fitness space. So I think that like in terms of us like sort of deprogramming our diet culture brains, learning to say like, okay, when I reach for this protein bar or when I reach for the protein chips, is that because I actually want to eat chips that taste like a chickpea's butthole? Or is that because I feel pressure to only allow myself to snack if there's something good or productive or healthy about it and not allowing myself to just like have a fucking chip?
Yeah. And so this ties into the marketing piece, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of gotten a little bit wild. Like what's actual science and what's hype and how can we wade through this?
Yeah, so there was actually a 2020 randomized trial in the journal Appetite that showed that simply labeling a product as high protein increased how much people perceived it as being healthy, even when the calorie content was high or other macros were less favorable. So this seems to be like a simple decision-making heuristic that people gravitate towards. They're like, it has a lot of protein, therefore it must be healthy. And then it has this sort of like halo effect that I think is now more potent than even low fat, low sugar, or even the word natural, because it's in everything, right? Like there's protein cookies, cereal, candy bars. And again, like it's sort of become this shorthand for companies to market food that previously people would have understood differently and just like slap sort of like a healthy glow on it without actually changing the nutrient composition in a meaningful way.
Yeah. So a lot of claims about protein are worth looking at more closely then. So one of our concerns here is how it's promoted in diet culture, not just as a nutrient, but as a way to kind of shrink your body or suppress your hunger or even reverse aging.
Right. Like protein has become more than a macronutrient. It's now marketed like a lifestyle. Like I feel like it's almost become sort of cultish in the world of like fitness and sports. Like I'm sure you see this with athletes, people who like their whole personality is getting enough protein.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was saying. Like there'll be people that are like, yeah, I only focus on protein. And I'm like, well, what about those other things?
You know that there are other foods. Yeah. So protein's role in satiety is real, right? Research shows that it can reduce those levels of ghrelin that we talked about. And that's one reason it's a pillar of so many weight loss programs and snack products. But the science often gets oversimplified in diet culture. So instead of focusing on balanced eating and nutritional adequacy, protein becomes a tool for control. So people sort of shorten it to like eat protein so you won't eat anything else.
Oh, yeah. I'll see this too. Like people will selectively like eat their food in a certain order so that they're not eating, they claim they're not overeating carbs then. So they'll like eat their protein source first and then they'll eat like the rest of whatever they have.
Fact check that for me. Is that how anything works?
No.
Great.
I mean, in general, okay, so protein does promote some satiety.
Right. But not like instantly, right?
It takes a little bit of time for that to occur. And also, I would ask people to ask themselves, why are you trying to suppress your hunger hormone and like restrict things? In my mind, that's like disordered.
Yeah. I think like so many things about protein, it feels like it's always just like 1 degree away from some like at best problematic eating patterns. And then because I'm me, it seems disordered.
Oh, yeah. No, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Like the sad chicken breast, sort of like the white meat chicken fitness meal that I feel like so many people like eat and
Chicken,
rely
rice,
on.
and broccoli.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Why do I know that? I have been a vegetarian since I was 17. I should not know this stuff. So yeah, it's, protein forward diets are a lot of times actually used to mask disordered eating under the guise of fueling or toning. So like eating a protein bar instead of lunch or skipping carbs because you already hit your macros. How do you talk to athletes about like tracking macros?
It depends on the person I'm working with, So I do get more granular with some people. Other people I don't, but that really involves a serious conversation at the beginning of when I start working with someone. Regardless, I try to encourage people to not focus on like having the perfect meal or the perfect snack and whatever that would be, but perfect meaning like it has to have exactly 31 grams of protein in it. And, like I also suggest to people to like, as a first step, just think about having balance in the different thirds of your day. If you were to break your day up into thirds, like could you get all of your macronutrients in each third of the day? It doesn't have to be at a singular meal, but like within a time frame that can help like get in the amount of nutrition you need and then also help keep energy levels more stable.
Yeah.
Because the reality is if you just ate carbohydrates all day, like you also might not feel the best.
Not going to feel amazing. Yeah.
Like you could have a lot of blood sugar
and
spikes
that's coming
and drops.
from me, the queen of carbs.
Yeah. So I think the approach of having a more balanced view on things is something that people don't want to hear.
Right.
But that
because it feels like focusing on macros can be a cheat code. Like, oh, if I just like get like, if I like nail the like perfect percentage of this thing, then like suddenly my body will just like become perfectly compliant and my body composition will fall into exactly the mold that all of these magazines run by like depraved 31-year-olds in New York City think a human should look like.
Well, and that's where it's like you are trying to control everything in like a diet culture way, in a way, like that diet culture math. You're trying to math everything and reduce yourself to an equation, which you can't really do unless you're like in a lab hooked up to a machine all the time.
Exactly. I know. It's always like There was a 2020 study in Appetite that actually found that women who were exposed to the idea that high protein was healthier messaging were more likely actually to restrict food intake later in the day, suggesting that protein's health halo actually reinforces restrictive behaviors. And protein is now central to the $50+ billion anti-aging industry, right? So sarcopenia, or age-related loss of muscle mass, is real, and higher protein intake can help mitigate it, especially in older adults. But that's also been co-opted. So enter drinks like Ensure Max Protein, Boost High Protein, and the muscle milks for seniors that are often paired with claims about bone, joint, or immune health. And like, yes, it is true that you should increase your protein intake and pay a little more attention to your protein intake as you age. But again, this is always done in this sort of like fear-mongering context of like, hey, old lady, if you don't want to break a hip, then you need to be chugging 19 cans of Ensure Max Lady Juice every single day. And so, you know, they all feature this messaging about like active aging and joint support, or even at its very darkest, like independence, which like, holy shit, I saw some very dark, like Slim Fast commercials, which are all not wholly inaccurate, but the way that they're fear-mongering, the way that they're being used to sell these products to older consumers, again, is much more based in fear than in like empowering people to make decisions about their own health from an educated place. And also collagen-based proteins are often sold as things like skin-supporting or anti-wrinkle, despite low DIAAS scores and a lack of robust evidence that they work better than whole protein in a healthy diet. Marketing around protein for women in midlife especially increasingly mimics the beauty industry messaging, using things like lean, glowing, strong, but never bulky. And protein becomes the bridge between diet culture and anti-aging culture. And this is where particularly masters age women are getting a ton of really bananas messaging.
And then the wild thing is like, there's all this messaging about protein, but then there's no messaging about how low carb can be harmful for bone health.
Correct.
And then it's just like, all right, cool. Like, if you don't have enough carbohydrates, then you're going to start breaking down muscle mass and bones. So.
Yeah, right. Like if you want to have healthy muscle mass, like wait till you meet my friend, Adequate Nutrition. And there's also this fitness virtue narrative that protein equals effort, strength, and moral superiority. And actually, sociologists have written about this as neoliberal body maintenance, or the idea that protein consumption becomes symbolic of discipline, productivity, and control over one's biology, which, again, sort of looking at trends in overall culture, like what we're starting to value, like that radical independence, like fighting aging, really like mastering and disciplining your body. Protein messaging kind of slots really neatly into some of those more nefarious ways of viewing things at the extreme end. In the influencer world, you see tons of hashtags like protein girl or high protein low carb or hashtag fit fuel. My Discover page is wildly fucked after researching this episode.
Protein girl, I haven't seen that one.
Do not look up the hashtag protein girl if you value your sanity and algorithm. And these are always paired with like the perfect like pose with like the stomach like perfectly sucked in and the sports bra that matches the leggings and like the pouty lips and like holding the branded shaker bottle. And these narratives actually affect eating patterns. So there was a 2022 study in Food, Culture, and Society that found that many women actually see protein-rich fitness foods as safer and more socially acceptable than full meals, especially post-exercise, which reinforces that low-calorie, high-protein grazing.
Mm-hmm. I've seen this too.
What does this look like in athletes? Like I've definitely seen athletes be like, oh, I don't need a whole meal after my run. I'll just have like a protein shake or my recovery shake.
Yeah. They'll have the recovery shake and then they're like, yeah, my appetite's suppressed and then I won't eat anything for 4 hours after that. But ultimately, pairing that with a little bit of carbohydrate could be more beneficial for you. And then also having a meal within 2 hours after you have that protein carb combo could be even better for health and fitness. So
make food meals again. Oh, I saw my first Maha hat in the wild this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was behind a lady wearing a Maha hat at the City Market checkout line.
Oh, damn. Okay, so his merch page is
Which,
you know?
yeah, living in the mountains in Colorado, like, obviously, I feel like we're, like, deep in Maha territory here.
Mm-hmm.
I wiped down the keypad after interacting with it for my own personal reasons related to history and science.
Okay, so with protein, what started as real science, like protein helping with satiety and building muscle or muscle maintenance, gets twisted into another way to diet and age better.
Exactly. Protein does matter, especially for athletes and aging populations. But when it's sold as a cure-all for hunger cues, wrinkles, or even just like your deadlift, that's when it stops being nutrition and starts being a mega hustle.
And I want to touch on here like a little bit more about how much protein people and athletes or active people really need. And I think this is where a lot of the confusion comes in, because it gets like boiled down to 1 gram of protein per pound. That's what everyone needs.
Please don't hate me. I've definitely said that.
Oh, that's okay. You probably
like do a couple like hail Kylies and get forgiveness
I think
for this.
you probably saw it on Instagram.
Do penance. Probably. I mean, also, again, I am not brilliant at math, so it's like the 1-to-1 is very nifty.
Yeah, it's hard with the grams per kilogram. People like ask me for the conversion and all that. And I'm like, well, you just take your weight in pounds, divide by 2.2 with the calculator.
Yeah. Or Google.
Yeah, or Google it. Just have them do a little calculation for you.
I'm curious, like, where did the 1 gram thing come from, and what is your beef with
I actually don't know. Like,
oh, really?
I'm really not sure. I'm thinking it's from like the strength recommendations, because it's equivalent to about 2.2 grams per kilogram body weight for like strength gain type thing. And I think it might have transformed.
Hypertrophy, lifting heavy Olympic lifts.
Yeah, I think that might have like transformed into everyone needs a gram per pound or something.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question about like how protein functions differently for like strength athletes versus endurance athletes. Is that something you can speak to?
Depends on what the question is.
Like how, like why are their needs different actually? Like when you think about like the demands that strength training versus endurance training puts on the body, why is the endurance recommendation what it is?
I'm not sure that it is that different. I mean, it is a little bit.
Yeah.
So if we look at, this is where it starts to get confusing, because we have to break it down into, how much training is someone doing endurance athlete wise?
Yeah.
Like if you're an ultra endurance athlete, like I would argue you need more than like what the recommendation is for a strength athlete. So for ultra endurance athletes, like the IOC's recommendation goes up to 2.5 grams per kilogram body weight per day, depending on training volume and intensity.
What
and
would
load.
you classify as someone who might fall into that group?
Ooh, that's hard, because then we're like, this is where I try to teach athletes how to classify your training for a day of eating. And so like if you're doing a day of training where you're doing a 4 to 5 hour run or something, or you're a triathlete and you're doing 2 sessions in a day or something, then you might want to go up to like 2.4, 2.5 grams per kilogram body weight. Yeah. It is a lot. And
that
like
is a lot.
when we look at strength athletes, we are looking at 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram per day. Yeah. Now, if you're running 30 minutes, you might not need that much, like 1.2, probably 1.2 to 1.4 on a lower end.
Like if you're active, you're doing your Pilates, you're getting your gym on,
but then
you're doing
even
yoga.
Starts to get more complicated, because if you're an aging athlete, like you might want to be at like 1.6. And so it's just like you have to take into context, like, what is my age category? What are my goals? What does my training look like? And getting back to the goals, like if somebody is trying to build strength, they might need to eat more protein to help them build strength. And I think people get confused, like when they're trying to talk about like changing body composition or have muscle gain. Like you technically have to eat more energy intake, like more calories, than what you need as maintenance. Like it's not like this thing where you like eat less and lose weight but also gain muscle. Like it doesn't work that way. Yeah. So I think people get very confused about all of this because of the message, like kind of what we talked about, like the messaging around it. Like they're like, oh, but I want to lose weight and change my body composition, but I also want to recover from exercise and age well. And it's like all of these different
How do you
goals.
talk to people who come to you with those sort of conflicting ideas? And again, like that is a lot to ask of one macronutrient to be your savior in the face of like diet culture, aging, recovery. Like, holy shit, that macro is pulling more than its weight.
Well, I think that's where it's important to understand, like, okay, what are the different range recommendations for protein? And then you dial in, okay, what's the best for me based on my goals? Now, the RDA for just somebody that's not really exercising very much is even lower. That's 0.8 grams per kilogram per day.
Wow.
And I usually give that example to people that are like training for ultras. I'm like, okay, like, yes, like we might not need as much protein if we're not training for something endurance wise. But you are an endurance athlete. There's a lot of muscle protein there's a lot of damage going on in the body when we're putting our bodies through. I'm like, a lot of damage when we're out there doing these endurance sports. And so
you literally are breaking your muscle down.
Yeah. So you need to give your body the amino acids that it needs to repair and recover.
Yeah.
So this is my like hot take. Like, yes,
Bring it finally.
I think
we're
that
half an hour in.
Protein is overhyped mainstream. But for the endurance athlete population, I don't necessarily think it's overhyped.
Do you think endurance athletes have maybe had an aversion to protein out of like, or they think like, oh, that's for people who are weightlifting. That's for gym bros. I'm a marathoner. I don't need that.
Like I will have people that be like, but I also need to lose muscle mass so I can run faster. And I'm like,
really? Oh my God.
I don't know about that, but... so yeah, like I could see that as being like a valid thought process going on in people's heads, but more often than not, I feel like I see people trying to like with the weight loss, like they're trying to train and lose weight and they're just focused on protein and then they don't eat carbs and then chaos ensues. So.
Yeah. No carbs, more chaos.
Hey friends, Zoe here with a shout out to one of our favorite gear brands, Janji. You know, we're big fans of running clothes that actually work, and Janji nails it. Right now, I'm especially obsessed with their 4-inch trail shorts. These things have 6 pockets. I can fit snacks, keys, gloves, a phone, emergency fruit snacks, Pop-Tarts, and backup Pop-Tarts. In them and still have a pocket left over. They're basically the cargo pants of the trail world, but like cute. And if 4-inch shorts aren't your jam, Janji's got options. Their trail shorts come in 4, 5, 7, and 9-inch inseams with thoughtful details like rubberized hems that keep the legs from riding up, and of course, pockets on pockets on pockets. So there's a pair that's just right for everybody. Janji gear is built to last, and it's backed by a 5-year guarantee, and I can vouch for that. I have a Janji sports bra that's so old, I think it qualifies as Gen Alpha. I should probably start a college savings account for it. You can find Janji at your local REI, or head to janji.com and use code YDS at checkout for 10% off your order.
So, okay, let's talk through what these guidelines are.
The guidelines themselves, you know, I kind of mentioned what those were already, and I think you can kind of divide. It's hard because like I don't want to like box people into a category, but I mentioned that like, you know, if you're somebody that's not exercising,
like obviously you're a wonderful, beautiful, very special snowflake, and you know you're a rich tapestry of human experience, but also like eat protein.
So we've got the low end, then we got that high end for ultra endurance athletes.
Yeah.
At 2.5 grams per kilogram body weight. But then I think the challenge right now is that there's like a lot of hype in the online space from certain influencers that are doubling and tripling the
Stacey
protein
Sims
recommendations.
Straight up recommends 3xing the average like intake for aging women. That is a lot, and that is not borne out in the research. Although aging active women should increase their protein intake, but maybe not on the factor of like 300%.
Well, and this is the problem, is that then people take that as I need to do this. So in order to get this in, then I can't eat carbs.
Right, because that's like that would put them at a calorie count that they have fear around.
Or they just can't eat that.
Physically, it would
can't eat
require
that
you like
much, yeah.
slaughtering and eating an entire ox every single day.
And then people get stressed about, oh, I have to eat that much protein. Like, it's so stressful every day.
Yeah.
Like, I've had athletes say they get stressed about eating that amount of protein.
But also, I resonate, like, in the times where I was trying to do the 1 gram per pound of body weight, I was like, oh my God, I would have to literally snort a line of protein powder at every single meal to meet my goals.
Yeah. As we said, like, I'm not saying don't have supplemental protein sources, but if you have to try that hard to get in your protein because you're aiming for 200 grams a day, I think that you need to take a second look at, like, are these actually legitimate protein recommendations that I need to be hitting?
And like, if it feels like bringing intention to your meals, that might be a good amount of attention. But if it feels like you have to like make a lifestyle change, like a dramatic lifestyle change, that's maybe where it's like, okay, let's check what you're actually doing and how we can maybe meet those needs in a way that's in better conversation with your life and goals.
And isn't there like a political side to this too?
So like you mentioned, the daily requirements do increase with age. If you're recovering from injury, particularly soft tissue, or during periods of caloric deficit. Yeah, so actually these guidelines haven't shifted much since 2005. And some experts actually argue that it's not just about the science. It also has a lot to do with politics. When the 2015 advisory committee suggested including sustainability metrics and recommending more plant proteins, meat industry lobbyists pressured Congress to shut that down. Yeah, so groups like the North American Meat Institute and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association actively were pushing to keep red meat central in the protein foods category by the USDA, even though it comes with a higher environmental and health cost. And again, we're not saying don't eat these foods. It was just like, hey, what if we took into account environmental concerns as well when we're making recommendations as to what people might want to put in their bodies?
What if we recommended beef tallow instead of seed oils?
So, meanwhile, these guidelines lump everything from lentils to bacon into the same protein group, which critics say creates a lot of confusion and lets ultra-processed meat products ride the coattails of genuinely nutrient-dense foods. And again, this is not where I say never eat an Impossible Burger, never eat a protein bar. It's where I say we should talk about these things with nuance and a vocabulary that reflects that they are different things. And nutrition experts like Marion Nestle have actually pointed out that we don't eat macronutrients in a vacuum, right? We eat food. And right now, the way that we talk about protein often oversimplifies a much more complicated picture, right? Like so often, protein becomes this like productivity macronutrient, and it's a way of turning food and connective experience into like a shake that you drink at your desk. And again, not shitting on protein shakes. I have had one in the past 48 hours. Shout out to my protein shake, but that can't be your only relationship with food. It is a tool that has a vital place in a lot of people's sort of like arsenal of food tools, but the way that we think and we talk about protein doesn't take into the full context like how humans experience food. And so a lot of proteins, or a lot of Americans actually do overconsume protein, something on the order of like 50%, and the rate is higher for men than women for non-athletes overconsuming protein. But that doesn't mean that everyone's getting it from high quality or even sustainable sources. And it definitely doesn't mean that we need it in cereal, in every single bar, cookie, and even energy drinks.
And having it in those things to ruin my cereal and ice cream.
Just let ice cream be ice cream, you know?
It's not just about how much protein we eat, though, right? It's also how and when you eat it that matters for athletes. I think this is an area that a lot of my athletes get confused
Oh my God,
about.
the 30-minute window.
Oh God, it's just going to shut. And then what?
I know the thing, whenever I have people ask, because that's like one of the big questions that we get asked on podcasts, and that I have a lot of athletes ask me as a coach, and I'm like, do you think humans would have evolved to where we are today if you literally could not use protein 30 minutes after you moved? Think about that for 40 seconds. That would be such a weak ass species. We would have gone the way of the dodo so long ago. Muscle protein synthesis, or the process that your body uses doses to build and repair muscle isn't just about hitting your total daily protein target. It's about giving your body the right doses of protein at the right times, while again understanding that these are not hard and fast rules. Your body doesn't operate under that many hard and fast rules. So a 2020 meta-analysis in Frontiers of Nutrition looked at dozens of studies and found that spreading protein evenly across the day, so somewhere on the order of 20 to 40 grams every 3 to 4 hours, was more effective at stimulating muscle protein synthesis than cramming it all into 1 or 2 meals.
But that doesn't mean that you're not going to have any muscle protein synthesis.
Yes, and I think this is where people get confused. They're like, it's not optimal. And it just turns into this black or white thinking of with diet, athletes particularly are so good at just like it's all or nothing when it comes to protein.
Mm-hmm.
And this is especially important for older adults who might experience some amount of anabolic resistance or sort of like a blunted muscle building response to protein. So for them, smaller, more frequent doses may help overcome that resistance to help maintain muscle mass. And there is a small, but I think pretty well-designed study published in 2012 that showed that casein protein before bed can support overnight muscle repair, likely because casein digests slowly and provides a sustained release of amino acids during sleep. This is something I've heard I think one of the weird diet culture things that will live rent-free in my brain forever is that you should eat cottage cheese before bed.
I mean, you can eat cottage cheese before bed.
Thank you.
But probably because it is high branch chain amino acid source, which means that those BCAAs do help promote high rates of muscle protein synthesis. And so if you are looking to recover from a hard day of exercise or something, a high protein snack before bedtime is not a bad idea.
And eating more cheese, always good.
Yeah.
Almost always
But it
good.
doesn't have to be cottage cheese. I hate cottage cheese.
I love all cheese. I accept all cheese into my heart. Do you like stinky cheese? You don't like soft. You're picky about your soft cheeses.
No.
I've
No
made this
blue
mistake
cheese.
when I've purchased a
No goat
charcuterie.
cheese.
Nothing from the goat? What about sheep?
No.
Like pecorino?
No.
Okay.
It just has a strong taste to me. I like cheddars.
I like the freakiest European cheeses I can get. I literally went to the town of Gorgonzola when I lived in Italy because I was like, I got to go to the mothership. I was like, I need to do a cheese pilgrimage.
That's amazing.
I have been to Gorgonzola. I have been to Parma. I've been to Tillamook to get cheese.
Wow.
I've done that's 3 separate cheese pilgrimages.
You're dedicated, Zoe.
I really love cheese. So that's wearing my heart on my sleeve. So, and here's where things get really messy. Not all research really agrees on how much the timing matters compared to the total intake. So there was a 2013 meta-analysis in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition that found no significant advantage to nutrient timing alone if daily total protein intake was adequate. So like you said, something that does come through in the research is at the end of the day, making sure you are getting enough is step 1 for sure. And then maybe if you're absolutely getting enough, you can start to think even more intentionally about timing.
Yeah. And I think when I'm chatting with people about this, I think thinking of it as, A, do you really want to eat 100 grams of protein at one meal? That might be kind of painful and overly filling.
Oh my God.
And then B, protein it does slow down the release of glucose into the bloodstream. So it can keep your energy levels a bit more stable. So kind of going back to that idea of if we eat a really carb heavy meal, which I'm not saying you can't do that, but if you just eat straight carbs at a meal, you might have this feeling of I have energy. And then I drop and feel like I need to take a nap.
Yeah.
And so if you have some protein with that can help even out your energy and keep you more stable.
More Gorgonzola, less nap. Yeah, I feel like the times where I've put I think I got 60 grams of protein once in a shake because I did a super long run.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to have the mother of all shakes to recover from this. And it literally tasted like something you would use to fix a brick wall with. It was so gnarly. And I
did it have a lot
made
of
this
protein
shake.
powder
I had
in it?
2.5 scoops of protein powder.
Which can be really hard on people's guts sometimes too. But
I mean, I didn't even get that far
Oh, okay.
because I took
didn't
one
finish
sip
it.
and I was like, Jesus, mother loving Christ, this is intense. I put it back in the blender and added like 2 cups of blueberries. And then by this time I had a shake that was like larger than a 16-ounce mason jar. And I was like, this is just
Kinda
like,
scary.
I can't consume like 4 pounds of food right now. Like
That's
this
hilarious.
is a second job. So that didn't work.
So basically, people don't need to panic if they miss their 30-minute anabolic window, but also like maybe have some protein at breakfast so you keep some even energy
Yeah.
levels.
Add some protein to your snacks.
Yeah.
And,
So
you know, I think that athletes should think of it a little less like hitting that perfect 30-minute window and think of it more like keeping the door open all day.
yeah. There's also a new study that came out recently, I think in 2023.
Yep.
In Cell Reports Medicine
We
that
love it.
challenges the idea that your body can only use 20 to 25 grams of protein at a time. Can you speak to the study?
Yes. So I feel like this is one of those studies where like overnight everyone was kind of like, whoa, this is like one of those things that like we're actually going to take seriously and potentially like adjust practice based on. So traditionally we've heard that anything beyond like 20 to 20 grams is wasted, that the body just oxidizes or excretes the excess. But in this study, researchers gave participants a massive 100 grams of milk protein after a training session.
That sounds like a gut bomb.
I know. I'm like, okay, I need to know how they consume this because like the farts involved in this study must have been intense. But fascinatingly, muscle protein synthesis was 30% higher over the next 12 hours compared to the group that just had 25 grams of protein. What was even more surprising is that extra protein wasn't wasted. There wasn't a significant bump in amino acid oxidation, which means the body actually used it. So this really suggests that a larger post-exercise protein dose might help extend that anabolic response over time. There are some important caveats for the study. Done in young, healthy men, and there are people on this planet besides young, healthy men, I have noticed. 100 grams in one meal is maybe not that practical or appealing for most of us.
You know, we were just talking
Like
about
the
that.
amount of cottage cheese and weird milk product you would have to shove into a smoothie might take you to an unholy fart place. And your daily total intake and protein distribution still matter a lot. But I do think the study is worth pointing out because it's a good reminder that the so-called protein ceiling isn't as hard and fast as we thought. And there might be room for flexibility, especially in athletes with higher needs or those training twice a day.
Flexibility, what's that?
I know. It's not black or white. I'm panicking.
Here's where things get a bit complicated because while many Americans, 50%, are meeting and exceeding their protein goals, athletes, and particularly women, aren't.
Yeah, so according to NHANES data from 2008, U.S. adults average 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, which is already at the upper end of the athletic range. So that's just normie people. And that often comes with a displacement cost. Higher protein intake is inversely correlated with fiber and whole grain intake, especially among men. So that's where we start to see that over focus on protein often comes at the detriment of things like carbs and fiber.
Which, I mean, in the standard American diet, I think we can all agree that people need to eat more fruits and veggies and fiber. There's a
Correct.
place for that.
Yes. And this is where it's like, again, like nuance, and your needs will change with age. They will change as your training changes. They will change in a training cycle. All of that is fine. You are human. You are welcome. You are loved. Gorgonzola is good. If there was a Gorgonzola flavored protein powder, I would probably eat it.
Zoe, no.
I
Just
would
no.
be the worst business person of all time.
Okay, so there's been a real shift lately then. A 2022 survey from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that around 10% of endurance athletes identify as vegetarian or vegan, and even more are mostly plant-based. One of the biggest concerns that we hear from our athletes, because you as a coach, is am I getting enough protein?
Yeah, or concerns I get from my mom, or like literally anytime someone finds out that I'm a vegetarian / runner,
yeah.
they're like, how do you get enough protein? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I eat food.
What?
My bean budget is extreme, but Here's my pitch: Gorgonzola protein powder. So animal proteins like meat, dairy, and eggs are considered complete proteins because they contain all 9 essential amino acids in the right proportions that your body needs to build and repair tissue. They also score high on DIAAS, which is the gold standard digestibility scale used to evaluate protein quality, meaning they're not just complete, they're pretty efficiently absorbed.
That doesn't mean, though, that like you have to eat animal products to hit your protein needs, right?
Right, exactly. So not at all. A 2016 position paper from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics confirms that a well-planned vegetarian or even vegan diet can fully support athletic performance, including recovery, including muscle repair, and even growth, as long as your total protein intake is adequate. So let's talk about what matters. Eat enough total protein. Plant-based diets may need slightly higher overall protein to account for lower digestibility and amino acid density, but not extremely higher. It's also helpful to mix your sources. So legumes and grains can offer complementary amino acids. And here's where big banner shout out to our Spotify commenters. You do not have to eat these things at the same time. This is just like in the context of a complete diet. I am not saying you have to have all of these things at the exact same meal and the exact same smoothie. Thank you. Leverage those plant-based MVPs, soy like tofu, tempeh, edamame, which is complete, high in leucine and very bioavailable, lentils, quinoa, hemp, pea protein, seitan, hail seitan. All of that is great. And again, eat it throughout your day.
Exactly. And I mean, I will say too, though, I get a lot of questions about like, oh, but I need more variety in my plant-based proteins. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. We're limited in those sources. And honestly, in protein sources in general. And that's why I think a lot of these companies are like, oh, let's just create a protein chip and you just add protein powder to it. And it's like, really? They're just adding protein powder to like these foods and slapping a high protein label on them.
Yeah, just putting a different sticker on it, which like you in our April listener question Patreon exclusive, we talked specifically about a listener question we got about how plant-based athletes can meet their protein needs, which is worth its whole discussion. But at the end of the day, I think that people tend to really overthink this. Yes, bring some intention to it, but you don't need to like stress too much.
And don't forget that a lot of plant-based athletes are already used to being strategic with food. It's not that they aren't meeting their protein needs.
Yeah.
It's like navigating this misinformation that's out there that you can't build or recover properly without chicken breasts and whey protein shakes.
Exactly. Protein paranoia is, I think, even more common than actual deficiency. But so something I do want your take on is collagen, because I feel like it's everywhere right now. Collagen waters, collagen creamers, collagen chews. And I've noticed it's not just in beauty aisles anymore. It's being pushed in the performance world too. And I feel like I hear things like it's good for your joints, it helps you bounce back, or that it supports healthy tendons and fascia. So Kylee, I think one of the most common questions we get is about protein powder. What's our favorite? Is it bad? Is it bad that it's processed? How much should I take? Is it bad to rely on protein powder? Is it good to rely on protein powder? So I'm curious, just like from a high level, what are your thoughts about protein powder?
Yeah, I mean, once we get into this a little bit, like a lot of protein powders have been tested to have high levels of heavy metals in them.
Wait, really? What?
So crazy contamination sort of
Holy
thing.
shit.
So this is why we need to make sure we're choosing good supplements.
Oh my God, or just fucking regulate the supplement industry like
I know.
it's fucking food, because it basically is food.
I mean, I don't know if we're going to get more regulation with this administration. So
No, we're not. Like straight up, absolutely not.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a lot of options out there. And when somebody's trying to choose a protein powder, look, you have to consider like what's my situation?
Yeah.
What, am I plant-based? Do I have food allergies? Can I not have stevia or sweeteners? Like that's my other beef with protein powders is so many of them have stevia or something.
especially the
And
ones
I'm just-
marketed at women. They're always like birthday cake flavor, blueberry muffin, or like chocolate scone, like these kind of like weird, like bullshit flavors that are meant to be like super feminine and sweet. And then also they're diet culture-y, so it's like full of like monk fruit and stevia.
Oh, and for me, I don't like the taste of them. Nothing, no
I
shade.
hate the taste of stevia.
No shade against stevia if you use
No,
stevia.
hella shade against stevia. It doesn't taste good. It's a garbage food. It's like a leaf, right? Fuck you, stevia. Be a better leaf.
Food allergies, that's another instance where people might have to consider like, oh, a rice protein powder, like that's going to be a good option because it's one of the least allergenic options out there.
Yeah.
Some people can't tolerate whey products, although I do think a lot of people are like, I can't do a whey protein powder because I can't do lactose. And I'm like, well, a lot of whey protein powders don't have lactose in them. So actually,
So
probably
great.
could. But if you do have an allergy to milk proteins, then, that's
Yeah.
going to be a challenge. Just looking at like wading through the hemp seed versus the plant blends versus all that kind of stuff. I think what I would say to athletes is like, if you have strong flavor preferences, you have to be aware of the sweeteners. You have to be aware of like a hemp protein and a singular, oftentimes plant protein is going to have a lot stronger taste
Oh, yeah.
than something like a whey protein or even a rice protein powder. So if taste is a factor for you, then consider those things. If allergies are a factor, consider the things I mentioned before. But on the flip side, like if you really want to get the most branched chain amino acids out of your protein powder for muscle protein synthesis, then maybe you need to get the whey protein powder. So it's like there are differences between all of these protein powders. Some of them might be pretty minor, but some of them, like, you might need to pay attention to them. And then a lot of my athletes, if they're trying to find a protein powder, I will mention, like, hey, get the small packets, because the last thing you want to do is buy one of those big tubs and then you're like,
Why are they
terrible.
so fucking, why does it come in like a barrel?
I know, you have to like
Why is
roll
the
it.
only size barrel?
You have to roll it on the floor to get it to the counter. No, I'm just
Why?
kidding.
What's up with that?
I have no idea on the packaging, but
It's just like it's so much huger than any other supplement.
I know, but don't get the big one is the thing.
Yeah,
Like,
start small.
I have athletes that do, like, if they use too much whey protein powder, it does make them feel bloated, or like the sweeteners or something in the protein powder, like, makes their stomach not feel good. So
Yeah.
you need to just get the small packets to try the flavor and see if they react well for you before you invest in a
Yeah.
bigger option and spend $50 on
Yeah.
something you're not going to use.
And because we get this question all the time, no, there's not a specific brand we recommend. The best one is the one that works for you. Try a lot. The best one is the one that you'll actually use, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if there is a best product, but if it doesn't taste good to you, then you'll never use it. So it's not actually the best product.
Yeah.
Also, there is no best product.
That is true. Situations or reasons why someone might want to use a protein powder, because I
Yeah.
think people get caught up in this idea that, like, oh, I'm bad if I use a protein powder as well. So I don't want athletes to think like
I only get my protein from free range chickens that I hand wrestle in the forest.
they can be really useful to get the
Yeah, dude, I
Protein
use
powder.
one every fucking day.
protein powder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to rely on protein powder as your only protein source, is what I tell athletes. But, if
It's a great tool.
if you need a quick option post-workout, especially those liquid options, or like make a fun baked good and put a neutral protein powder in there and
Oh,
like
yeah,
get
yeah.
more protein in. If you're on a plant-based diet and you want to get some extra protein in, however, might not need it based on this episode. Remember, like, you need to understand your needs. You might not need 200 grams of protein every day.
Yeah. You don't need
Meaning-
to 3x the recommendation
Right.
if you're like jogging.
But if you do have a heavy training block, like, you might need extra protein powder, and like, it's okay to use 2 scoops of protein powder in a day as well.
they won't come find you.
Yeah.
It is allowed.
If you have any kind of like digestive issues, chewing challenges, things like that, it could be good for you as an option to get the liquid nutrition in, or lack of appetite too. That's the other one,
Yeah.
Again, boosting the content of things without having to chew, and like, post hot run, you're like, oh, I don't feel like chewing something. Great. Use protein powder.
Yeah. Sometimes I am just like way too hot to chew. That relates.
So we talked about this a little bit, but like on the supplements episode, we talked about this too, that you kind of need to be aware, right? If you're buying protein powder, can we look into that a little bit more?
Yeah, like you said, that there is like a very real contamination issue. So there's actually a 2018 Clean Label Project investigation found that over 70% of protein powders contained detectable levels of heavy metals like arsenic, lead, BPA, or pesticides.
Ew.
So like, don't stress about organic vegetables, but maybe like make sure the sketchy protein powder that you bought off Instagram doesn't have straight up like embalming fluid in it.
Oh.
And then there was a New York Times article in 2024 that the reporters who did an investigation found that many quote unquote natural and boutique powders, specifically the ones marketed to women, were underdosed, contaminated, or made misleading claims. So our recommendation is always going to be that NSF or Certified for Sport and Informed Choice consistently screen for contaminants. So those are the things to look for to make sure you're not eating fucking arsenic in your protein smoothie.
Yeah. But even then, I always tell people it's not 100% guarantee.
Because we live in hell and we don't regulate supplements. That is a choice we made. We used to do it, and then because of fucking Mel Gibson and his dumbass vitamin C commercial, we don't.
Okay, so I want to hear potential downsides to the obsession with protein.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just like with any obsession with like a specific macronutrient or specific diet, like whenever you get hyper fixated on one thing, you're often leaving other things out or on the table. So in general, like, again, acknowledging that this is different for athletes, but the average American who is not an athlete that is overeating protein, they're also only getting about 15 grams of fiber a day. That's like the general national average, which is well below the 25 to 38 gram recommendation. So a lot of these protein forward diets think the paleo, keto, ancestral tend to really push out beans, whole grains, and produce, right?
Yeah, it's freaking wild to me. I'm just like, we're focusing on all this other crazy stuff right now in the health system, and we're not focusing on
eating some fucking beans,
increasing plant-based foods. Like,
yes.
That seems like,
oh my God, like we're gonna keep fighting about red dye 5, like while there's arsenic in protein powder. Cool, great, we love to see it.
Now, on the one other note I want to make though is, for my plant-based athletes that are trying to get more protein in,
yep,
you do have to watch that fiber consumption.
Yes,
though.
this is in, you know, quick plug for our Patreon. We talked about this in our bonus episode, but like you said, oftentimes we have plant-based athletes reach out and they're nervous that they want to eat more protein, but they don't want to eat processed protein. Well, unfortunately, like you're going to have to make some concessions.
Yeah, I mean, like, and what going back to our ultra processed foods episode, like what constitutes processed? Because tofu is processed. Like,
that's true.
It's, you know, you have to draw the line somewhere. And are you going to eat 5 tons of beans every day and have your gut be shredded, like as a like be a wreck? And then the other thing is if you have too much fiber, like that can inhibit micronutrient absorption. So we have to weigh out these things when we are considering our situation.
Balance. And you know, there's actually been some observational studies that link a high intake of animal protein, particularly red and processed meats, with elevated IGF-1 levels and potential links to accelerated aging in terms of like inflammatory markers and those telomeres that we talked about in the longevity episode, and cancer risk. But this likely depends on the type of protein and broader dietary context. Again, having like a steak is not going to kill you, but if you're like primarily eating hot dogs off the gas station roller thing, that's not ideal. Have you ever had a gas station hot dog?
No.
Me neither.
Oh, no.
I'm always so curious, like, who eats that?
But I also don't know if I want to eat that.
No.
I kind of have this
Tube
thing
meat,
with
not my
germs,
thing.
too. I'm just like,
That's right, you are a germ. And I'm not a germ like, I'll eat fucking, I'm a fucking human garbage disposal. I've eaten some gross stuff.
My colleague and I were just at a conference, and there was, like, yesterday, there were these wraps sitting out in the sun. It was 85 degrees in Arizona, and they had no ice under them. And we, like, straight up didn't eat them because we were worried about food safety.
See, I, on the other hand, like when I see someone leave a restaurant and there's still like good food on their plate, I'm like, I was going to order fries, but can I just have theirs?
That's hilarious.
Like, she didn't eat her fries. Like, I'll eat your fries. Like, I don't want those to go to waste. I have a pretty, as we learned, I have a really robust microbiome. I can probably handle it.
Well, and this is the problem, I think, with like promotion of the carnivore diet. I'm like, do we know?
There's literally nothing that is not a problem with the carnivore diet.
Do we know the long-term effects of what eating all of that meat is going to do to
but we
someone?
know the short-term effects are bad. So why are we even worried about the long-term? It's like, what are the long-term effects of setting yourself on fire? We need the science. It's like, no, we don't. We know it's bad.
Can't wait to do that carnivore episode.
Yeah, that's going to be good. Stay tuned for that. So yeah, again, like it really depends on like the quality of your protein. But again, particularly for athletes getting hyper fixated, particularly like a lot of the folks who tend to be plant-based also tend to be like pretty tuned into their diet in general and pretty aware of the processed and ultra-processed dynamic. And that's really where I would advise caution in terms of like, it's going to be very challenging for you, like you said, Kylie, to meet those protein goals while not severely overdoing it on fiber, because it has to be balanced. And like, there is no like perfect plant meat.
No.
Like there's no plant protein where there's risk and benefits with everything, right?
Exactly.
It's a trade-off. So I think that that's like an important thing to acknowledge.
And then I want to hear more, because this is your specialty area, your environmental cost of this.
Yeah. So we're going to do a whole episode in the future about like the environment and eating, but just to, touch on, like, it's worth acknowledging, particularly here in the realm of like animal protein. There was a 2023 study in Nature Food that found that shifting from animal proteins to plant-based proteins could reduce dietary greenhouse gas emissions by up to 55%. Again, it's different for athletes. We know that many athletes may not be meeting their protein goals. As we've learned, people might be closer than they think, but the majority of Americans, like the larger dietary context of the United States, is that Americans are over-consuming protein, particularly animal protein, particularly red meat protein. So I would definitely like to see the amount that, like, as an environmentalist, I would definitely like to see the amount of red meat and processed meat that the majority of Americans are eating come down, and filling that with more of the plant-based protein so they can also start to meet those fiber goals and have lovely poops in a climate that isn't a shit storm.
Well, and also, as we've been talking about in this episode, like, are we over consuming protein? Like, is it...
Many people, yeah.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, if people were to actually consume what they needed versus twice the amount they need...
Right.
That could potentially help the environment
like,
as well.
Even a normal step, like without people like have a plant-based diet, but I don't believe in being prescriptive towards other people, because eating is such a personal choice, and I believe in body autonomy. But I definitely think if you're over consuming a protein that is bad for you and bad for the planet, that's some low-hanging meat fruit we could bring right down.
Oh,
and beef has the highest emissions per gram of protein. Legumes, tofu, and soy all have 10 to 50 times lower emissions per protein unit.
So that's pretty significant.
So like maybe have a soy burger every so often, or like don't eat red meat for breakfast. Like find those ways to bring it down if you're one of the average Americans who for some point is listening to a science podcast for athletes. And you've made it this far, listen to my recommendations, I guess.
There's a lot to digest, literally digest here.
See, that's why you need fiber. If you're not getting enough fiber, this podcast will literally shred your brain and GI system. What is that brain fiber?
What are some takeaways for everyone on this protein idea?
Well, protein is essential for life, and it is extremely important performance, but more isn't always better, right? Like athletes and people in general tend to have this idea, if a little bit of something is good, then a lot must be even better. And at a certain point, maybe it's just expensive pee, but also maybe you're putting stress on your kidneys because you're over consuming protein, and stress on our food system and environment because you're eating too much
protein.
Too much protein. So most people meet or exceed their needs through food, especially in Western diets. Again, with the caveat that athletes, that need changes with who you are, what age you are, and how much training you're doing. So athletes really should be aiming for that 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram per day, and prioritize spreading protein intake evenly throughout the day, right? Not just waiting on one smoothie.
So 1.6 to 2.2 is for endurance athletes. If we've had, we have a wide variety of listeners.
Yes.
So
Shout out to our weightlifters.
Yeah, if there's different types of athletes out there, like that's endurance recommendations are actually quite high.
Yeah.
For as we kind of went over before, like 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight for somebody that's not doing any exercise.
Yeah.
If you're just doing some fitness exercise, like you might only need 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind. Also, that protein powders are helpful tools. They're not mandatory. They should be high quality, third party tested. Buyer beware. Potentially advocate for regulating the things that we eat like food, but somehow don't regulate like food, because that's cool and makes sense. And that the hype around a lot of this like protein enriched everything often distracts from more pressing needs in people's diets: fiber, micronutrients, and whole food diversity. So protein is good. Protein is important, but it's not the only thing in life that matters.
Thanks for listening to Your Diet Sucks. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to share your favorite episode with a friend or on social media. Your Diet Sucks is hosted and researched by Kylee Van Horn and me, Zoë Rom. Sound and production also by me. Thanks to Cleo Rome for the amazing original artwork for each episode.